welcome in as well. We're going to be covering a live stream, the aftermath of the Chase reporting glitch, the Chase business credit card credit reporting glitch, how that's leading to significant AMEX financial reviews on a lot of different people's consumer relationships with AMEX as well as business. It's also triggering a cascading effect of financial damage that a simple "I'm sorry" is not going to cover. So what else we'll be covering in this live stream is going to be what the Chase reporting glitch is for anybody who catches this that is interested, that didn't get the full context of this. We'll be going over what the Chase credit reporting glitch is, why it's so bad, why it's been so impactful, how it's going to ultimately cost Chase Bank, or at least seemingly would cost Chase Bank, how convenient the timing of this credit reporting issue is as well, who's getting hit the hardest and why, what this means for Chase Bank and business credit cards as a whole going forward, the takeaways, the lessons, and then things you can do to make sure that you can fix this or navigate this for any other, the fallout or any other negative consequences you may have experienced due to this Chase credit reporting glitch if you were a victim to it. So for context, the Chase credit reporting glitch essentially is where a certain batch of business credit card holders that were personal guarantees on those business credit cards, that credit card usage was reported on their consumer credit report, the business owner or personal guarantor's personal credit report. For any of you who may not by chance be aware of this, up until this point in time, that has been completely not a thing. If you actually dig into the educational portion of Chase Bank's own website, they make it pretty clear without going all the way to say that it is extremely uncommon for business credit cards by most major banks to be reported, the usage to be reported on consumer credit reports. This is a thoroughly understood expectation that I am getting a separating factor or tool or cash flow management tool that is going to separate my business activity and usage from my consumer activity and usage. This is really the biggest point of a business credit card. We're going to come back to that later on. So the glitch is essentially the broken trust and the reporting of business credit card usage on consumer credit reports. Now, why is this such a bad thing? Why has this turned out to be such a big deal in the alternative media? We're going to talk about that as well, because the mainstream media hasn't covered this at all that I've seen. So this is so bad because, and mind you, this is coming from somebody who is literally in retail banking by trade and happens to be a business banker by trade. I work with small businesses. The ones that were affected by this, I work with on a daily basis. So this was so bad because business credit cards are intended to be a separation of business transactional activity from consumer transactional activity, business finances from consumer finances. That being the case, there's a couple key distinctions about business activity and business transactions from consumer transactions. Number one, frequency. Number two, size. Number three, when it comes to business credit cards, it is very common to keep a balance on a business credit card. This is one of the benefits of a business credit card. And this has been a profit benefit for banks and institutions. Banks know that businesses are likely to spend a lot more money. They're a lot more likely to carry balances and transact on a higher level. I see a couple of y'all coming in. Savannah, hello, welcome in. So with that being the case, the banks, the financial institutions, they know that this is a benefit to them. They know that businesses are, that card selling point as a business credit card is to give elevated rewards bonuses, give higher spending limits. But beyond all of that, most importantly, is to give anonymity from the consumer credit report, from the consumer side of your personal finances. That is the baseline of the value of a business credit card. So they know this, and businesses are relying on this as a, buffer to be able to function and operate their businesses without taking damage and hit on their personal finances. That is literally the baseline cornerstone function of a business credit card. So it is extremely common, and I'm telling you from firsthand as a business banker, for businesses to float balances on their credit cards. It's not because they're not prudent. It's not because they're irresponsible. It's because many businesses front services and front goods, or sometimes have to front inventory before they can get their profit back, before they can make a sale, before their invoice gets paid. So business credit cards serve as a cash management tool primarily. Number two, they've grown to function as a funding tool. And Chase Bank, again, promotes this on their own website. I am recording this from my mobile phone, so I'm not able to do the screen sharing I might normally be able to do from my laptop setup. But you can go on the educational portion of Chase Bank's website under the business credit card section. You will see them themselves speak on the fact that you are typically able to use business credit cards as an initial funding tool for your business. It's literally on their website coming out of their own mouth in print. So it's extremely understood that business credit cards are cash flow management tools and funding tools by the institutions themselves. So carrying a balance is extremely common. Carrying a relatively high balance is extremely common. How common, you may say? Well, it's common enough to the extent that even credit reporting agencies on the business side either don't count utilization or they count it at a significantly higher level, meaning that the threshold for a business credit card's utilization to be in a danger zone is magnitudes higher than it is on a consumer side. Once you get beyond 10, 20, 30% on the consumer side, you're considered in danger. When it comes to the business credit card side, 50 or even 70% is considered a normal to slightly dangerous range on a business credit card to be carrying a balance. That threshold is nearly double, if not triple, what it is on the consumer side. All of this shows that the financial world, financial institutions, and credit reporting agencies are well aware that balances will be carried and they will be carried at a high level. A personal guarantor is going into the interaction with the assumption that that business credit card will only come to bite me on the personal side if I default on my obligations, if I don't hold up my end of the bargain. So this has been an utter betrayal by Chase Bank, literally an utter betrayal. And this has cost, I'm certain, thousands of business owners 1 month of horrible credit reporting, which can interrupt home buying opportunities, can interrupt business funding opportunities, can interrupt other personal credit card opportunities, auto loan opportunities, in some rare cases, employment opportunities. There are certain jobs that pull your credit as a background check, depending on what field you're going into. So Chase Bank, putting out this PSA of, oh, this was an error, this was a software glitch update situation, it was unintentional, and it'll be fixed within a billing cycle. It's completely egregious because there's irreparable long-term damage happening to those who are affected by this. Now, we don't know the scale and scope, and that's why I wanted to briefly touch on the fact that the mainstream media has not covered this yet. And I want to put context on this because maybe this is only a small batch of people. When you think about the clientele base of a Chase Bank with business credit cards, a small batch of people could be thousands or tens of thousands of people. I am sure that there are hundreds of thousands to millions of Chase business credit card holders, Ink card holders in the total portfolio in America. If they leaked out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of those people, that is thousands of individuals whose finances have been completely smacked by their incompetence, or what some other prominent YouTubers and finance creators believe is an intentional prelude to where they may be going with credit reporting on business credit cards. We'll get to that in a moment. But I want to put out that the media not covering this is absolutely egregious. It's ridiculous. Shout out to all of y'all coming in on the live stream. Low-key secret, what are you talking about? I'm talking about Chase Bank leaking or accidentally leaking business credit card usage on consumer credit reports, and that leading to other financial institutions auditing their cardholders, auditing that personal guarantor who was compromised with that business credit reporting data, okay? So basically, business credit cards, Chase Bank's business credit cards were reporting on a certain number of consumer credit reports, which is completely abnormal, okay? In that process, most people are carrying balances on those cards. And relevant to consumer utilization, relatively high balances, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% of those card limits are being maxed out at the time they were being reported. So this is a bad thing when you hit your consumer report and you're graded by 10, 20, and 30% utilization as good. This has turned into a scenario where American Express and other financial institutions are within days of this leaked information popping out on your credit report, they're being triggered to financially audit you now as a cardholder of American Express and other financial institutions. And I will get into this later, but I've encountered live people in real life who have told me that this has happened to them. So this isn't just me pulling this out of my backside. First off, I am a retail banker by trade. I'm a financial services professional, and I happen to be a business banker amongst my other licenses and certification. So I'm dealing with business owners firsthand, number one. Number two, literally in the street, I'm encountering individuals who have been audited or other financial institutions are bothering them now about looking distressed on their credit reports because Chase Bank's accidental credit reporting glitch of their their business utilization reporting on their consumer side. So hopefully any of you that are coming in, you're catching up. So at the end of the day, for now, any of y'all that's coming in, I'm going to step out and focus on the content. If you leave a super chat, I'll respond to that. But other than that, I'm going to be locked in for a minute. So that having been said, why do I say that this is convenient timing? Now that we know what the glitch is, now that we know that why this is a bad thing, the next thing I want to talk about is why is the timing for this so convenient? As I mentioned in my brief video that I shot closer to this all coming out, within a couple of days of this all coming out, I shot a really short video, just kind of a PSA that this even happened and a quick breakdown on why it was a bad thing. In that video, I explained how convenient it was for Chase Bank to have this mythical glitch of reporting this information on consumer credit reports as the CFPB has just been dismantled. Extremely convenient timing that within weeks of the Trump administration basically freezing, locking up, and dismantling the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, an agency of the government that is tasked with policing these types of activities when it comes to companies abusing or harming consumers. This is exactly the type of scenario the CFPB, again, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, would be on top of if they were in place and functioning at a normal capacity. So for Chase Bank to put this out there as some kind of an error or put this out there as some type of glitch is hella convenient timing that it has not ever happened before to our knowledge, any of our knowledge that have been in the finance space for the last 10 plus years. And it happens within weeks of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau being completely dismantled and broken down, or at least broken down in its functionality. So the one bureau or the government agency that could have kept Chase Bank in check, or it could be the one that turns around and puts together some kind of overall broad scale settlement, like legal settlement against them, or a broad scale lawsuit against them and force them to have to pay out, is being broken down and potentially permanently dismantled, or at least during this administration, completely dismantled. Extremely convenient timing that Chase Bank would have this error, causing thousands, likely thousands of business owners, personal guarantors, and consumers serious financial hardship in a blink of an eye, when the bureau that would likely be the most likely to stand up to them and get them to actually repay or distribute some kind of financial reparation to those individuals is completely dismantled. So Chase Bank can basically go out on a quick apology tour, pull this off your credit report, however they're going to do that, which is another conversation as well, and potentially not have to make up for the damage that they caused you, where you could have got your limit slashed by AMEX or other financial institutions. You could have gotten your home purchasing process completely dismantled and that deal falling through if you were making it close to the closing table, because your credit is monitored the whole time that you're under contract for a home purchase. Auto loans that you may be in the process of trying to close or get your hands on. Anything that your consumer credit could have been tied to, that Chase Bank having this abrupt, unannounced breach of your business card usage reporting on your consumer report for many people at a high level, causing double-digit to triple-digit score drops, by the way. Tens, if not potentially 100+ point drops, because again, you have a new account popping up on your report. And if your utilization is at 50, 60, or 70+%, and it's also a higher limit than normal consumer cards, so maybe you only had a 10, 20, 30,000, 20 and $30,000 of available usage on your total credit report, and you got a $15,000 business credit card reporting at 60% utilization popping on your credit report, it looks atrocious. So you're seeing significant point drops. This is not like a 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 point thing. This is likely 50, 75, 100, 125 point drops on your FICOs across the board. This is reporting across the board in many cases. So this is completely disturbing anybody who is in the middle of a significant financial transaction or completely delaying significant financial transactions. And Chase may be able to get away with this without paying you a penny, without compensating you in any form or fashion for the financial hardship, in some cases, permanent financial hardship, again, like AMEX financial audits or limit slashing, which is absolutely happening. They may be able to completely skirt by this by just simply going on an apology tour without compensating you for the damage that you've taken on your consumer credit report and everything in the cascading effect of everything that's linked to your consumer credit report. So who is this hurting the most? Well, as I kind of decorated a little earlier on in the live stream, unfortunately, this is going to slap mom and pop small businesses and brand new business owners the most, who are relying on this for an initial cash flow tool or an initial funding tool. You do have business credit card holders that are transactors, individuals that are putting high spend on a card and paying it off in full or paying it off to a high level, leaving a minimal balance on the card, staying in a safe range on those cards. But you have a large conglomerate of brand new business owners or existing business owners that may run thin margins or tight cash flows, leaving significant limits on these cards, living and dying on them as a cash flow or blowing life into a brand new business as a funding tool, where you're going to use 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% of the available card limit with the assumption that it's at worst only showing up on the business side of your credit reporting, on your entity, on your EIN, not your social security number. So this has turned into a massive problem for whatever batch of people that are small business owners, freelancers, and independent entrepreneurs who are in a situation where they were relying on that anonymity and taking a risk of using that financial tool as it's marketed, by the way, for funding or cash flow management until they get their business off the ground or until they get paid back from clients or whatever service they're providing or good that they sold, trusting that they're not going to completely tank their personal finances in the process, tank their personal credit scores in the process. So this is an utter betrayal to small business owners, mom and pop small business owners, small freelancers, small entrepreneurs who are marketed and sold this product with one of the cornerstone benefits being anonymity, and that rug being pulled from underneath them blatantly, with no warning, abruptly, and potentially lasting for weeks on their credit report. This is something that Chase Bank is not promising to fix immediately. They're saying it will be fixed within a 30-day or a billing cycle. Complete insanity. So this is damaging some groups significantly worse than others. And if you fall in that bucket, comment down below. So what does this mean for Chase Bank, and what does this mean for business credit cards as a whole? For Chase Bank, it's another huge dent in their reputation, particularly for those individuals who loathe Chase Bank the most and are the most skittish of Chase Bank the most, which is your everyday Main Street consumer and your everyday Main Street small business. Chase Bank already has an extremely tainted relationship with small business owners and everyday consumers and everyday, individuals on their personal finance side and the personal banking side because of this type of thing. Chase Bank has a notorious reputation of being unfriendly to everyday working class people and small business owners. If you're not a millionaire, if you're not a deep six-figure earner or cash holder or depositor, if you're not a multi-million dollar, multi-revenue million-dollar business, you feel like you can't get funding from Chase Bank, you can't get approved from anything for Chase Bank, their accounts cost you too much, you can't qualify for their accounts, you can't cash checks over there. The list goes on. Chase Bank has been notorious for being extremely difficult to bank with and borrow from. if you're an everyday working class person, and if you're an everyday small business owner, freelancer, or entrepreneur. So this is going to be a huge detriment to the reputation of Chase Bank, a very significant detriment to Chase Bank. So that's number one. Their reputation is hit. The next question is, where does this go for their business credit cards? Well, I'm not assuming that, a mass amount of business credit card holders are going to just close out or drop their business credit cards. So Chase Bank probably won't experience significant attrition or turnaround or churn on their business credit cards because of this. But you can be absolutely confident that many business owners, myself included as a Chase business card holder, will be extremely leery about doing business on those cards. At the end of the day, now, I may be in a situation where I'm already using it. I have a rhythm going on. I already have balances on the card. But trust me when I tell you, don't get it confused. As soon as I'm able to pay those cards down, pay them off and start maybe shifting over to other financial institutions that have a better reputation, or distributing my uses across other banks so I can't let any single bank have that kind of effect on me, you can be sure that I'm going to do that. I'm not going to put the level of spend. I'm not going to carry the level of balances, trusting one financial institution to protect my anonymity as they market it to me. So I'm going to be in a situation, as we'll talk about a little bit later when we start talking about ways to protect yourself from these types of things, where I'm going to be mindful of my usage with this institution. Business credit cards as a whole, well, this is where it goes into, other prominent financial YouTubers like the Credit Plug. Carol Barton is another one that I pay attention to that is pretty prominent in the space that is around this arena. Believe that this may be more of a warning sign of where this is headed. Chase Bank may be getting into the business of reporting business credit card users on the consumer side, with this being more of a risk management tactic for them, because there may be a significant number of business card holders who are carrying heavy balances and not making significant payments and showing higher risk levels where maybe their cash flow isn't looking good. They're not making significant payments on those cards, carrying those balances for longer durations of time, and Chase is hitting a discomfort level when it comes to their risk management. The problem with this is you're killing a whole line of business, or at least significantly denting a whole line of business. If you start playing the Capital One game of reporting business credit card users on the consumer side, you're trashing the usage of your Ink cards, because the balances you would normally get, the spend you would normally get, and the base of people you would normally reach with this card has shrunk significantly. There's a very different base of people and businesses that can afford to put significant spend on a business credit card and pay it off in full or pay it off to a high level every single month consistently. If I know my personal credit is at risk, you just completely took that out of the equation for me. I can use consumer credit cards. It's easier to qualify for. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The 0% offers are longer most of the time. It doesn't make any sense for me to even deal with you guys on that side when it comes to business credit cards if you're going to start reporting it on the consumer side. It's pointless. That's one of the reasons Capital One probably doesn't have nearly the clientele base that a Chase Bank or the American Express has, because Capital One is well known to report business credit card usage on the consumer side. All of us talk about it in the credit card and finance space. We all talk about it. Capital One is out of the equation. It's out of the equation because one of the biggest benefits of cash flow management and funding on a business credit card is the protection and the anonymity away from my consumer credit report. If that's out of the window, then the hell with it. So business credit cards as a whole may end up in a scenario where they lose their appeal. And so we're in an economic cycle right now where financial institutions like Chase Bank may be taking abnormal levels of precaution. Their risk management and risk mitigation strategies are shifting. So it is possible that they're going to say, okay, we have to broaden this out. We have to manage our risk, broaden this out, and start shedding light on how these cards are being used and the level of risk and exposure with these cards. You already had the EWS early warning system situation. Again, as I put in the title and I'm putting out there, with American Express being triggering financial reviews with American Express, triggering audits, limit slashes, because EWS, you have early warning system where your bigger banks are the founders, the co-founders of the EWS system, where they're sharing information already as it is. But, you know, that limitation of the fact that that's not like the equivalent of your consumer credit report, which is broadly attained. EWS is really kind of more for bigger banks. They're not responding to that in the same capacity. EWS is not, it is triggering, but it's more of a thing when you're applying for something or coming into something new. It's not as popular of a trigger point for existing customers and existing usage, like your credit report can be. Your credit report is something that can trigger any financial institution to get that information that your risk level has shot up and to start to respond accordingly with their one-to-one relationship with you. EWS has not shown to be that as much at the moment. So we're seeing I'm seeing and hearing about firsthand significant individuals coming back to me where their businesses are being financially audited. Their businesses and their consumer relationships are being financially audited by American Express. Other large financial institutions like Bank of America, they're starting to ask questions. They want to see more documentation that they didn't ask for in the beginning. They're starting to slash limits involuntarily. So business credit cards as a whole can shift as a product line because one of the cornerstone benefits is anonymity. My ability to put higher spend, manage cash flow, and potentially fund business operations with these cards under the banner of protection that I can separate this and not take a hit on my consumer side. I can still function as a consumer in the marketplace while taking a little bit of abnormal levels of risk on the business side to operate my business, which is exactly all entrepreneurship is. Let's be abundantly clear. It's risk taking. So let's not sit up here and act like you're irresponsible or business owners are, not prudent or irresponsible or that's what they get for doing that. Because trust me, that's all it is on the playing with that on that side is all business entrepreneurship is. Nobody or next to nobody's functioning in all cash and scaling any kind of real business. That group of people is this big in the grander scheme of small, medium, and large size businesses. Look at the debt levels of larger corporations. Come on now, let's be honest. Let's be honest. So let's not drag for small business owners, freelancers, and entrepreneurs for using business credit cards and other financial tools as they're marketed to us as a funding and a cash flow management tool. I digress on that. So what are some of the takeaways and lessons? Kind of touched on this already. As we know, at the end of the day, we have to be mindful of how we're doing business with these financial institutions, especially these bigger banks. Let's be honest. I've been a proponent on my channel of how to bank with bigger banks. I am a master of relationship banking, and I teach that on this channel very frequently. How to master building strong relationships with banks, because banks are the center orbit of financial prosperity in this system. Wealth building, no doubt about it, is around banking. And as my channel is unique because I promote that and I teach that on this channel. I'm not teaching you how to get rich just through stocks, just through real estate investing, and all these. I teach those things through banking as the center orbit, because you can't be a successful stock investor. You can't be a successful real estate owner. You cannot be a successful business owner if you don't have banking down pat and have strong relationships with banks. Access to capital, access to financial tools and resources, access to investor tools and resources, etc. You have to master relationship banking. That having been said, it's time to revisit how we're doing business with these larger financial institutions. Takeaways, you have to spread out your usage. You cannot put all your eggs in one basket with these big financial institutions, any financial institution, but especially one that has the capability to do the kind of damage that Chase did with this glitch. You cannot put yourself in a situation where your entire business is funded strictly by a Chase Bank, a Bank of America, a Wells Fargo, who can turn around and in a blink of an eye and do something like report your usage of a business credit product on your consumer finances with no warning, no disclosure, no time for you to make payments, adjustments, balance transfer, something. You have to put yourself in a situation where you have enough banking relationships, even if they're small, but you have your foot in the door with other banks and you have multiple different other products and banking relationships to lean on. Don't put yourself, myself included, in a situation where you have 60, 70, 80% utilization with one financial institution on their business product under the guise of thinking I'm okay because it's only being disclosed to them and maybe a back-end business credit report that's not really being pulled into the fray with other financial institutions, generally speaking. You can't do it under the blind guise of anonymity. That clearly is gone now, clearly is out of the window. Chase Bank might fix this, and we might not see something like this for months, years, but it's not worth it. Those of you who catch this, that have experienced this glitch and had your credit reports tanked because of this, or could have had it tanked because of this, it's not worth it. You have to put yourself, if you need $20,000 in capital, get it from 5 different banks. Get $10,000 limits from 5 different banks and use $2,000 to $5,000 a piece. Because at least at this point in time, you're no more than 20 or 30%, 40% utilization. If that happens to leak out or get reported, you can survive that. Your credit report can potentially survive that. You have to spread out your risk as these banks are doing on you. You have to spread out your risk of getting your financial tools, your lending needs met from multiple institutions. Next takeaway, protect your consumer credit by having multiple credit limits and credit cards and high credit limits at multiple banks. I am somebody who had my credit card leaked, my business credit card and card leaked on my credit report firsthand. Why did it not impact me the way that it impacted many other people? Because at the end of the day, I have over $100,000 in personal credit limits. So at the end of the day, even though I had a significant business credit limit that came on to my report out of the blue, it dented my utilization percentage by 10, 15, 20%. For that same thing on most people's credit reports, maybe yours, if you only have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in limits on the consumer side, and you get a leak of $15,000 or $20,000 on a business credit card, that's 40, 50, 60% of your utilization. That's a totally different monster. So protect yourself from these types of situations on the business funding side by having massive credit limits on the consumer side. I've shot so many videos about this. And up until this point in time, some people probably thought it was crazy. Now you see a live scenario where this makes a lot of sense and has a lot of value. Get healthy credit limits on the consumer side, even though you don't need them. That's the point. If you end up with a scenario where you have an emergency, you end up in a scenario where there's an opportunity, or you end up in a scenario where there's a betrayal by a financial institution that leaks something that you think is going to be kept to the side or kept in the dark, like a line of credit or a business credit card, over to your consumer credit report. You have the limits to not completely sabotage and crash your consumer credit report. It leaked on my side, and I had a decent utilization on that card that got leaked for me. But I still have credit scores and FICO scores that I can go out and get approved for a car, a home, another credit card. I'm going to survive. It hurt a little bit. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't comfortable. But I have over $100,000 in consumer credit limits. So when my $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 business credit card rolls over with a 50% or 40% utilization, it hurt, but it hurt nowhere near what it did for many people who experienced 90, 100, 125 point drops in their credit scores overnight, and maybe already had just a 720, 740, 750. So you're in the mid to low 60s overnight. That completely knocks you out of multiple different forms of qualifications at the end of the day. So spread out your risk mitigation and risk management amongst multiple different financial institutions for business funding and business cash flow management. Number one. Number two, make sure that you build a healthy personal credit profile before you even go to the business side. Get 5, 7, 10 personal credit cards if you're going to play this game, and get significant limits on them. Nothing short of $10,000 on a card if you can help it. Get $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 limits on the consumer side, which will help you get better limits on the business side and business funding anyway. But now you also see it as a defensive measure for you to protect yourself if there's a breach in circumstances, a breach in data on your consumer side. Get multiple banks for business funding, but before you get your business funding, get a strong consumer credit profile from multiple institutions. If you're smart, set it up with the consumer side, set it up with the same institutions you're going to go to on the business side for the sake of relationship banking. We won't dive into that right now, but that's how you should line that up. Protect yourself. The next thing you need to do is have good income or cash. That is the next reason that I didn't have a heart attack when that leak affected me. I was able to make payments and deal with that and was prepared to make more payments if I had to. It was going to be uncomfortable for my cash flow because it wasn't part of the plan, but I had it to do. Make sure on top of spreading out your risk on the business side, building a strong consumer credit report and great credit card relationships, good cash flow or cash management, personally and for your small business. If you don't have money coming in for your business yet, make sure you have a stable income, stable job, stable sources of income on a personal side. Don't be tight cash flow tight on the personal side and taking this kind of risk on the business side, because as you can see, things happen. And your personal finances can be completely destroyed, wiped out, nuked by a bank, a financial institution who has an error randomly right after the government that could be tasked in policing them with that kind of behavior is dismantled. Don't put yourself in that position where you have poor consumer credit or thin consumer credit. You're relying on one or two banks for your business funding, and you're taking monstrous risk of 50, 75, 100% utilization with those institutions on the business side, and you have little to no cash flow to manage it in a case of emergency or just in general to scale out and continue to manage your business and your business lending and your business cash flow. Don't put yourself in that position. Spread out your relationships on the business side. Spread out and build good consumer business, personal banking relationships and personal credit relationships. Have good cash flow personally. Have good income personally. Have savings personally. And hopefully build it on the business side as well. That's some major takeaways for you to buffer yourself in these types of situations. Things you can do if you were exposed to this glitch. Chase Bank has made it clear that they plan on fixing this on the reporting side. Cool, sure, let's run with it. If they do, when they do, be mindful to pay attention on how they fix it. Ideally, they remove it all the way off your credit report. Hopefully, they don't think just not reporting the balance, but the account stays on your report is fully helpful, because it won't be. But pay attention to your credit report going forward. Pay close attention to how Chase corrects this on your credit report. Don't be scared to hound them if you need to. Call them like crazy and pitch about it. Cut up if you have to until you get the results that you need on your credit report. Don't be scared to still reach out to the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Reach out to the credit bureaus if you need to and dispute this. Reach out and dispute this, because technically speaking, this is a business account. It is not a consumer account. So it is not accurate technically. So it can be disputed. Chase Bank might try to play some kind of games where they act like, there's some level of fraud or identity issues with that, and they might give you a hard time. But you may have to fight that battle if it's damaging your consumer credit report bad enough. Don't be scared to dispute this with the credit bureaus if you have to. Communicate with the financial institutions or lenders you may have been working with if you were in the middle of working with them when this happened. If you were in the middle of buying a home, if you were in the middle of applying for a credit card and the application got disturbed, if you were in the middle of anything where your credit report being damaged was affected, make sure you give them all the information possible around this glitch. Chase Bank is taking responsibility for this. You may have to get Chase Bank to provide you something in writing. So to bring back to your closing attorney, to the financial institution you are applying for that credit card with, whatever. And be mindful that your applications for these different things have time windows for you to revisit those applications. With consumer credit cards, you usually have like 30 days to play around with that application without having to get your credit pulled again or do a new application from scratch. So be mindful of these things. Another last little nugget I will give you to protect yourself that you may have to go to is your state attorney general. They assist with these types of scenarios where you have company abuses, credit report abuses, companies exploiting you, whatever. The state attorneys general is kind of like the state level of the CFPB. A lot of people don't know this, but they are a good resource when you are having illegitimate practices by business, consumer, credit reporting issues and things of this nature. They're going to want you to be legitimate and they're going to check you out, but they will get on these things and defend on your behalf for free. They are a public service provided by the state. So please be mindful of this when you are in the midst of this situation. You're dealing with an AMEX and you have a financial review. Unfortunately, you may be stuck with this financial review and have to provide whatever they're asking you for or make whatever payments they're asking you to make. You may also want to consider a balance transfer if AMEX is asking you, if they're auditing you and they're like, hey, you got to make a certain payment if you don't want us to go any further into this financial review. Try to look into a balance transfer if you have it to do. And even if it's on the consumer side and it's a business card that you're dealing with, do what you got to do to keep AMEX from getting up your butt with financial reviews. Because once you get into a bad space with them, they can be hella hard to deal with and to get out of that hole with. So keep in mind, if you don't have the cash to pay them at that time, a balance transfer can be enacted within 2 to 5 business days and look like a payment on their end. So that's another little quick hack strategy that you can use to protect yourself or to buy yourself some time if you're in a bind with AMEX in particular. So this is kind of the latest and greatest around this situation. A lot more could be said. I'm going to wrap this up for the most part. I see some kind of like troll-like people in the comments on here, but if anybody legitimately is watching this live and you have any questions, please drop a comment in real quick. I will answer those for a second, but I do want the replay to be relatively clean, so I'm not going to stay on here too much longer. But this is the latest and greatest that's going on with this Chase credit reporting glitch. AMEX financial reviews getting triggered and other financial calamities and snowball factors or cascading effects that's taking place from this horrible financial catastrophe that Chase Bank has created on their software update, their software glitch. Any questions by anybody legitimate in the comment section? Anybody legitimate with any questions? I don't see anybody. I see one legitimate question. DS, if you're still on here, can you confirm no other banks are doing this besides Chase? At this time, there's been no other reporting of this happening, DS, that I've seen. If you are still on, there has been no other reporting of this happening that I've seen by any other bank. Chase Bank has went on record, on paper, stating that this was an accident. So this has not been a standard move by financial institutions, but please watch your credit report and monitor your relationships with these banks to make sure. I have banking relationships, business banking relationships, business funding relationships with AMEX, Chase Bank, where I have Goldman Sachs with the GM card. I have multiple different Elon Financial. I have multiple different business credit cards and consumer credit cards. I haven't seen anything other than this Chase Bank glitch, DS, if you're still here. Anybody else? I don't see any other legitimate questions on here, so we're going to get ready to wrap this up and close this out. I appreciate all of y'all for tuning in. All of my pioneers, welcome back. To my new viewers, welcome in. This is JP from Blueprint for Prosperity Network. I'm checking out. If y'all got any questions, leave them on the replay that will be launching on Wednesday. I believe that's going to be March 12th. On Wednesday evening, this will be launching out. So anybody catching the replay, y'all comment down below if you're catching the replay and you followed all the way to this extent. I answer as many of my comments as possible. I am very engaging in the comment section. So if you have any questions around this situation or anything else that I laid out on this video, leave it on the replay. Other than that, I'm about to wrap this up and get out of here. I appreciate every single one of y'all. Y'all stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.